Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Often we talk about those things that we're willing to do to reach financial freedom, things that we're going to do to grow our portfolio. We talk about those things that we're absolutely going to repeat until we reach financial freedom, to take us to our freedom number. And sometimes we talk about things we won't do, like those things that we just won't do. We're not willing to lower our standards enough to do those things. But I want to talk today about those things that the three of us, Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Millennial Mike, have actually done and will not do again. Like, maybe we learned our lesson, and smart people learn from their mistakes. Geniuses learn from someone else's mistakes. So you people watching are going to learn from our mistakes. And we're going to take the easy one off the table. Two of us have pretty much taken oaths to never get married again. Never, in my case, think I will let her handle the finances. And 5 people just went, wait, he's straight? But yes, I'm not going to let someone else handle my finances. We're going to take that off the table. We're going to start with Matt today. Let's look at things you've actually done and don't plan on doing again when it comes to finances.
I bought a bad deal. I bought a deal on a house that I shouldn't have bought. It was a transitioning house in a transitioning neighborhood. I bought a deal that was promised future opportunity, and not just on the appreciation side, just truly on, hey, the rents are here now, but this market's definitely changed, and a lot of the stuff around here has been kind of, done, and there's a few bad houses still left. But guess what? When the crash came and the crash happened in 08 and 09, that area got bad fast. I stopped going there. I had to hire somebody to go out there to get the money for me, because I was like, I'm not going to get in a shootout over $1,000. And so it was just one of those things where it was, I just would never use my money on a bad deal again.
What were the things that could have told you that was a bad deal, so that people can recognize that when they're going in? Because I would say all of us would say never buy a bad deal.
Yeah.
Easier to tell once you own it. How could we have told with that property before closing? Was there anything that would have indicated that?
Margins were skinny. They were a little too tight. I think the building was $2,700 a month was mortgage, taxes, insurance. Basically, pie tie was about $2,800 a month. And I think total rents were $3,100 a month or $3,000 a month. It was tight. It was not good. And so the deal was too tight. And they were also newer rents, newer people that once they saw the decline in the neighborhood, they weren't renewing. And so I didn't get any of the benefit of even rents staying flat. They didn't renew. I had to re-rent, and we saw that rents didn't like crash or even really correct. They went down a few percentage points, but when you're only making a few percentage points, you are now negative. And so it became the thing where on a monthly basis, and the bigger issue was it took a long time to then fill the units, because the place was the house was nice. The building was good. The area was horrible. It declined very quickly. I know factually that 3 drug dealers moved into vacant units that were, within a block of this place. So there was, shall we say, late night nocturnal activities that were occurring on the reg. And that made it a very undesirable place. And I know that a number of people broke leases too. Once they moved in, they're just like, I'm not living in this neighborhood. And I was like, so it was like a constant thing. And there was less than no equity there. So it was not something I could have sold.
Okay, Mike, let's look back over your investing, either before you started getting into real estate or at any point, something you've done with money that you don't plan on doing again.
So I've actually been really good with my money. Number one, if you never had any money, it's hard to make a mistake with it. And I grew up unbelievably poor. I did my first budget when I was 8 years old because I didn't want to be poor. I started mowing lawns at about 10 so I could buy Pokemon cards. So I've been good with money since I was a little kid because I didn't like being poor. But I know I did think of one thing, the worst thing I've ever done. And that was I lent money to a family member. Terrible idea. And not because I'm greedy and don't think I should help my family members, but let me explain why. This is something I agree with Dave Ramsey on. He actually did a video on this recently. He's known for saying why he doesn't believe people should lend money or borrow money is because the debtor is slave to the lender. Well, when you put yourself in a position where your own family member is now slave to you. I mean, obviously not actually my slave, but it just changes the relationship. So in my case, my little brother, Jacob had an accident, broken his front 2 teeth. He needed money for surgery for his front 2 teeth. And his father, who's not my father, his father didn't have any money. Nobody in my family's rich. No one has any money. And I had been working, I was probably 19, saved up like $5,000. And they asked if I could give them $4,000 to pay for that surgery. And of course I was going to do it because, I mean, it's my brother's teeth. I'm not going to let my 11-year-old brother go to school with no front teeth and be a loser. He's already a loser enough. I mean, if you guys saw this kid, you'd understand why. He needed all the help he could get. But anyways, I'm kidding. I love you, Jacob. Anyway, so I send the money in my, I was told, hey, the insurance company's already approved it. After the surgery's done, they'll reimburse us for the money. You'll get your money back. No problem. And, I asked a few times over the next couple of months, hey, what's the plan? What's going to happen? And to this day, I don't know if the insurance company ever reimbursed them and they took that reimbursement money and kept it, or if it just never happened. But it essentially just completely ruined any relationship or friendship that I had with my brother's father because, I kind of just felt like I was like, wow, I kind of got taken advantage of here at 19, 20 years old. And, maybe it wasn't intended to be that way from the beginning, but that'll ruffle some feathers, especially when you've worked so hard to save all that money just coming out of the recession at that young of an age. So if you want to lend money to your family member, you should just consider it a gift. If I had just said, you know what, I've got this money, I got to help my brother out here. I'm the only one in the family who can. Here's the money, take it. I don't need it back. It would have put an entire different context on that entire operation. I still would have done it, but then I wouldn't have just been upset about it afterwards and caused all this friction between us, and even though I was never rude about paying me back, but certainly destroys trust and makes you feel some type of way. So never lend money to family. Just give it if you can.
A way to relate that to real estate is my first tenant was a friend, no lease based on a handshake, and it went horribly wrong. Everything was set up by me to fail, right? So I would say don't rent to friends, don't rent to family in the beginning before you have systems in place. Once you develop a backbone and have leases and have systems, and your family members. I've rented to my son, I've rented to my nephews, I've rented to friends, but it is, here's the lease, word for word, this is what we're doing. This is a business arrangement. Take the family and friendship out of that. Here's one thing that I won't do. We're going to try to do 3 each. And Mike, if you only have that one, I will understand. For me, it is, I will never run a business. I am an investor, not an entrepreneur. I have ran businesses for someone else and performed really well because I had the owners of the companies to perform for. I started a trucking company myself, had about $200,000 to run this business with. And I kind of set that as a goal. I lost $100,000 in the first 6 months. I lost another $50,000, and it cost me almost $50,000 to shut it down. I'm not good at running a business unless I'm there to run the day to day, and I don't want to do that. So I'm never going to own a business again. I will make investments, and my money will make money for me. There's a big difference between being an investor and being an entrepreneur. Some people are both, like Matt. So let's go to your second thing, Matt. Something else you won't do with money again.
Mike took mine. For me, it's definitely the family thing, and that can be cash or renting, because I've gotten burned by all. Burned by all. And so, and I think the issue is that it was really funny because for years and years and years, I had the rule I won't rent to family. I wouldn't do it. But then there was one that was an exception. She was my favorite. She was, we're very close friends. I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. And she was largely speaking, she was fine. But then when you do that one, you got to do it for the others. And then the others ended up becoming the issue. So mine is the same as Mike's first. It was, I wouldn't do giving of cash unless you were doing it as a gift and knowing that it's going to be that, and that you were okay with not getting $1 back, and renting, because renting's the other thing too. Because I've had them leave and do a couple $1,000 worth of damage. And I was like, really? Who's going to fix that? Well, it was there. It was like that when I got it. No, it definitely wasn't.
I think that was one of the biggest resistances I had from friends and family was, you're going to get a deposit from me? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And not just because I know you, but just because this is how I'm going to run my business.
Exactly. But you're not special. Sorry, not special.
And Mike, do you have a second?
Yeah, I do. So I thought about financial mistakes that I made. And yeah, the biggest mistake that I made with money after lending it was I just didn't make more of it sooner. And that might sound a little oversimplified. Well, yeah, okay, obviously everybody should make more money. But so much of what we do and how our lives pan out is because of the own mental blocks and limiting beliefs we put in place for ourselves. I worked in construction from 18 to 25. I didn't finally become a police officer until I was 25 after a pretty tragic event happened to a friend of mine. I had considered being a police officer a few years earlier, but I thought to myself, nobody's going to hire me. I'm only 21. Who's going to hire a 21-year-old to be a police officer? That sounds like a terrible idea. And, maybe it is. But when I ended up getting into the academy, I was one of like the 5 or 6 oldest people there. Everybody was 21. Sure. I was like, I could have gotten way more money, started this career with all these better opportunities so much earlier. But because I told myself I couldn't. I was right because I told myself I wasn't able to do it. And so, yeah, I had a good friend of mine, Darius, been on my channel. He has 2 rentals in Gary now. He was working at Starbucks for $13 an hour while he was going to college and did not believe he could get a better job. And then he starts talking to me, and I got him from 13 to 26 bucks an hour just by having him call my brother to work at the security company my brother works at that you just need a high school diploma for. So there's so many times where because you tell yourself, I can't make more money, and you haven't found the right opportunities, met the right people, talked to the right person. This wasn't even like a real hookup. Like he could have found this job on Google if he'd really tried. But you just you get comfortable telling yourself, yeah, this is where I'm at. And my friend Darius grew up poor. I grew up poor. I think to a certain degree, when you never had money and you get that job and it's a consistent, maybe not stable or good, but consistent income, you're a little hesitant to walk away and try something new because that involves risk. And if you have an entire life of being very poor, why would I give up something that's certain and risk it for something that's better? But you have to get over that hurdle of you're going to be stuck here forever unless you read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, and freaking chase the cheese. I don't know if you guys have read that book. Oh, and on the topic of doing odd jobs as a kid, I wrote this down. Did anybody ever deliver phone books?
No, I didn't do that.
We delivered phone books it was a thing in my town, at least. They would I think it was Dex, the yellow pages, whatever it was. They'd be like, okay, you got to deliver this many phone books. You get like a quarter for each. Okay. That's just me, I guess.
I delivered flyers for local businesses. So I had to find 2,000 cars or 1 dumpster. That was a brilliant point, Mike. I love that. I've actually caught myself several times limiting how much I can make by thinking that's what my value was. But I limited myself thinking, it's too far to drive. This one's stable for my kids. And I shot myself in the foot for probably a decade on not making money because I didn't think I could. One of the biggest mistakes I've made with money that I can't imagine the scenario where I would ever do it again, but I wouldn't want to do this even if I was starting over or when I'm talking to my friends, family, or kids about doing this, is for a period of time, I maxed out my retirement accounts. I thought taxes would be lower in the future. I would retire broke, and it was planning on retiring at an older age. If you are looking at retiring early, I think maxing out your retirement accounts is a huge mistake. And there's kind of a tiered system to it. If you work at a company that has a 401k match or a retirement account match, I would contribute for the match to get the money. If you're picking a job and you're looking at a company that has a 401k match and one that doesn't, look at their entire compensation package. Usually, and I know this because I've ran a company that does this, you figure out how much you can compensate your employees, you take something away from their wages, and you call it a contribution match. The employees' income didn't go up. It just changed how they got it, and it limited their income that they could invest with. So that would be one of the biggest things I would say is if you have a match, get it. If you're shopping for a job and you can get one that just pays more, I would take that. This is for people who want to retire early. If your plan is to retire old and to retire broke, sure, retirement accounts are better than nothing. I have one more after that, but let's go back through. Matt, do you have a third?
I think probably the biggest mistake that I made financially, I think it was buying stocks and not using a stop loss. Didn't know that was a thing.
Well, you had a stop loss. It was zero. You just need a better stop loss.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, so wait a second. I got to pay $8 to sell my 1 cent shares. I don't see how that works. It's delisted. Like there's nothing there to sell. It's zero. But yeah, I think that was one of my biggest mistakes. Certainly live and learn. But again, it was what taught me about the market. And I then went looking for a different asset because, it was a hush number. It was fraudulent. They didn't actually get the contract. It was just a rumor they were getting the contract. It was all this silly stuff that doesn't happen in housing. It can't happen in housing. It's an asset. You own it. Here's your mortgage. Here's your taxes. Here's your insurance. And here's what your rents are. It's very, very simple. That was probably the biggest mistake that I made. And I think that's why largely I'm also skeptical of crypto. And if people aren't skeptical of crypto, I don't know what they're watching. Maybe it's been over a 10-year span, but it's $300 or $200 if you bought Bitcoin, 8 or 9 years ago, and then it went up to 70,000 and now it's 24, but it was 16. Question was it going to break to 12? And so that's where there's always that challenge there. I think you have to have stop losses in place on something where markets can move like that. Because on a house, even if my houses go down 20 or 30 or even 40%, rents aren't going there.
And before somebody says something in the comments, because I see this every now and then, yes, your house can burn down. And then all you're left with is a big lumpy mattress full of cash that you got from the insurance company and a vacant lot you can sell for a profit.
Exactly. True story.
And before I wrap this up, Mike, did you come up with a third?
I did. So the single greatest financial decision that I ever made was house hacking, more impactful on my life than anything else. So the single greatest mistake I ever made was not doing it sooner. There wasn't YouTube in the capacity that it exists right now when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. Back in 2010, there was no Stephan. There was nobody talking about how to house hack. I hadn't even met Matt. Matt was still struggling through the recession. None of this stuff was out there. So I didn't know, again, limiting belief. I didn't think I could buy a house. Who sells a house to a 19, 20, or 21-year-old? But if I had known that, if I had believed that, if there had been somebody to take me by the freaking collar and say, buy a freaking house hack, I would have bought it 2010 or 11 at the bottom of the market and rode the waves of appreciation out here in the Seattle area from that $100,000 house to what's probably now worth $1 million. Yeah. And I would be so much further along. But unfortunately, I didn't house hack soon enough. So that's probably the single worst decision I've ever made, even though I didn't consciously make it.
Mike, that's probably why, nobody wants to sell a house to a 19 or 20-year-old. That's probably why Cody, Chuck, and Caleb all have, Cody and Chuck have, Cody had over 100 now. Yeah. Chuck and Caleb have 28 units before they can buy a beer, right? Yes. So I totally get that's a limiting belief. The last thing that I would never do with money again, but did it on purpose for a while, is be frugal. I did not start the path to financial freedom so that I could retire and live a frugal lifestyle. I am going to do anything I want at any point in time without looking at price tags. That's why I didn't set my freedom number, which for me is around $4,000 a month. It's like 37 something over the last 6 months of information. I didn't go, okay, I've got $4,000 in cash flow. I'm retiring now. I waited till I hit the 4X rule. I have 4 times the amount of my freedom number coming in from a source where I don't have to sell my life 1 hour at a time to then retire so that I can do anything I want at any point in time. I'm not going to be stupid with money, but I'm never going to be frugal the way we kind of need to be the first 5 years of our investing before the income snowball kicks in. We need to not take vacations. We need to have a 10 to 15-year-old car. We need to actually think about what is the best way for me to get food. For some of us, that's shopping frugally, preparing your meals yourself. For others like me, once my kids are older and out, that's looking around and finding the bars and casinos that have certain nights where I don't drink and I don't gamble, and that's how they plan on making their money. And I go in and I get a $10 or $15 meal that lasts me 2 or 3 meals. I'm never going to do that again. So I figured that would work for you, Mike, because I think the 3 of us kind of grew up that way. I'm not sure, Matt, if I've heard when you were, okay, I know that both me and Mike were, 8 to 12 with jobs because our parents weren't going to
10.
Get school clothes for us or anything.
Yeah, 10. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dion, if you don't want to be frugal anymore, how come you and I go to Denny's together at least like once or twice a week? We ain't going to any fancy places. I don't know, man.
Because the food
is good, but I'm calling BS. I think we're being a little frugal.
So I need to educate you on Sizzler. So the next time we go together for lunch, it's going to be Sizzler. So here's the thing. There were times I would go to Denny's because I needed to save the money, right? And the first time, and we've said this a few times, even in shorts, the first time I realized I had made it, I was no longer poor, was I would go and get a soda with an actual pay for a soda that costs more than a 2-liter at the
Mhm.
store with my meal and not, tear up over it. But I like the food. I like the consistency. And so I pull up every restaurant in an area around me. There are a couple I will go to that aren't that, the same, but I like the consistency. My brother and I spent a month in Thailand, and we tried all, when in Rome, do whatever, right? And yes, if you go to the street vendors in Thailand, they always have their really creative food that's not what they eat every day. They have regular restaurants. I'm a pad Thai fan. Actually, Lad Na was way better, but then my brain shut off because now I'm thinking about food. But in Thailand for a month, the treat for me was taking my brother to McDonald's to get the food I'm used to. So yeah, it's not to be frugal. It's because I like the food, and I will never think about it when I go again. When we go to Denny's, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I don't look at the menu at the prices. I always used to every restaurant go and figure out what's the best deal. And now I go in this moment. And actually, it's not even in this moment. I pick like 2 or 3 things off the menu. And then when the waiter's standing there, the one I feel the most comes out. Price is not even a factor. And yes, it's just Denny's, but it's the same when I go to El Gaucho. And it's going to be $400 for the plate, right? What do I feel like tonight? I don't feel like doing that very often, but I will. Thank you guys very much. You guys have been awesome. If you guys want to ask more things that you won't do, you can find Matt, the lumberjack landlord, here on YouTube, who has a course. Oh shit, I'm a landlord. Now what? Things to actually do once you close on a property. There's a ton of information on how to get those properties, not much information on what to do next. And you can find Millennial Mike here on YouTube and on Instagram because he's half the age of me and Matt. Someday I will stop making jokes.
But not today.
Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.